When we speak of the ancient gods of Greece, our minds often drift toward the thunderbolts of Zeus, the sea storms of Poseidon, or the wisdom of Athena, yet one figure always lingers quietly in the shadows, unhurried and unnoticed, as though he belongs to another rhythm of existence. That figure is Hades, the god of the underworld, the master of a realm beneath the earth where mortals go after death, where treasures lie hidden, and where time itself feels heavy. Tonight, let us wander slowly through the long, winding tale of Hades, a story that is not of noisy battles or blazing spectacles, but of stillness, patience, and inevitability. It is the kind of story that unfolds like a gentle echo, one that might ease you into the comfort of sleep, as myths tend to do when spoken softly and without urgency. The origins of Hades stretch back to the dawn of creation in Greek imagination. In the beginning, the universe was chaos, shapeless and without order. From that chaos emerged Gaia, the earth, and Uranus, the sky, and from their union came the Titans. Among them were Cronus and Rhea, who would later bring forth children destined to rule. Cronus, fearful of being overthrown by his offspring as he had done to his own father, devoured each of his children as they were born. But Rhea, grieving for her lost children, tricked Cronus when her youngest son Zeus came into the world. She gave her husband a stone wrapped in cloth, and Cronus swallowed it, never realizing he had been fooled. Zeus was hidden away, nourished in secret, and when he grew, he returned to challenge his father. The great war of the gods and titans followed, shaking heaven and earth. When it ended, the Olympians triumphed, and Cronus was cast aside. The three brothers, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, stood together to divide the cosmos among them. By lot they chose their domains. Zeus claimed the vast sky and the high throne of Olympus, Poseidon took the seas, and Hades received the underworld, the realm beneath the soil, where all mortals journeyed after death. It was not a gift of bright glory but of somber authority, yet Hades accepted his role without complaint. He became the unseen ruler of an invisible kingdom, a place both feared and respected, a place of silence and permanence. The underworld was not a single plane but a vast and layered domain. At its entrance lay the rivers that marked the boundary between the world of the living and the dead. The most famous of these was the river Styx, dark and sacred, upon which even the gods swore their unbreakable oaths. There was also the river Acheron, the river of woe, which the boatman Charon ferried souls across, demanding a coin for passage. Without that coin, a soul would linger restlessly on the shores. The river Lethe, the river of forgetfulness, offered release from memory, while the Phlegethon burned with flames, and Cocytus wailed with eternal lament. All these rivers twisted like veins through the underworld, giving it form and atmosphere, and Hades was the unseen heart that kept them bound together. Within his kingdom stood the great gates guarded by Cerberus, the monstrous hound with 3 heads, each snarling at those who tried to flee. Beyond the gates stretched meadows, asphodel fields, shadowy groves, and the deep chasms of Tartarus, where the most wicked were punished. Above all stood the palace of Hades, dark yet regal, built of onyx and obsidian, where the Lord of the Dead sat upon his throne. He was not cruel, though mortals feared him. He was stern, impartial, inevitable, and he kept the balance between life and death, ensuring that no soul could return to the living world without cause. For all his solemn power, Hades lived mostly apart from the Olympians. While his brothers quarreled, plotted, and boasted on Olympus, Hades remained in his quiet domain, rarely ascending to the light. But there came a time when loneliness stirred in him, and he longed for companionship, for a queen to share his throne. His heart turned toward Persephone, the maiden daughter of Demeter, goddess of harvest and grain. Persephone was bright and lovely, dancing in meadows of flowers, the joy of her mother's heart. Hades saw her once and desired her, yet he knew Demeter would never allow such a union. And so, he resolved to act. The story of Persephone's abduction is perhaps the most famous part of Hades' tale. One day, as Persephone gathered blossoms with her companions, she reached for a narcissus flower that shone unnaturally bright. At that moment, the earth cracked open, and Hades emerged in his dark chariot drawn by black horses. He seized Persephone and carried her into the depths, the earth closing above them. Her cries echoed across the fields, but only Hecate, the torch-bearing goddess, and Helios, the all-seeing sun, witnessed the truth. Demeter searched tirelessly for her daughter. She roamed the earth with her torches, neglecting her duties, and in her grief, crops withered, fields turned barren, and famine spread. Mortals began to starve, and their offerings to the gods dwindled, weakening the Olympians themselves. Zeus, seeing the balance threatened, sent Hermes to negotiate with Hades. The messenger god descended to the underworld and spoke of Demeter's anguish. Hades listened, but he had already made Persephone his queen, crowning her beside him in the shadows. He did not wish to release her fully. Cunningly, before she departed, he offered her a pomegranate seed. To taste the food of the underworld was to bind oneself to it, and Persephone ate, some say a single seed, some say several. Thus a compromise was forged. Persephone would spend part of the year with her mother above, bringing spring and summer, and part with her husband below, ushering in autumn and winter. Through this rhythm, the cycle of seasons was explained, a story of loss and return, descent and renewal. This tale revealed another side of Hades. He was not merely the cold warden of death but also a figure of attachment, desire, and inevitability. His bond with Persephone gave him a queen, and together they ruled with solemn dignity. Persephone was no longer simply the maiden of flowers, she became the dread queen of the underworld, receiving the souls of mortals with calm authority. Hades and Persephone formed a strange but lasting union, one of shadow and balance. In myths, Hades often appears not as a trickster or warrior but as a guardian of boundaries. When heroes attempted to cheat death, he was the one they had to confront. Orpheus, the legendary musician, descended into his realm to reclaim his beloved Eurydice. His song was so beautiful it moved even the stern hearts of Hades and Persephone, and they agreed to release Eurydice on one condition: Orpheus must not look back at her until they had both reached the world above. Yet Orpheus, overcome with longing, glanced behind too soon, and Eurydice vanished forever. Hades had kept his word, and the rule was unbroken. Another hero, Heracles, came to the underworld as part of his labors. He sought to capture Cerberus and bring the beast to the surface. Hades, unlike his brothers, did not rage against this intrusion. He permitted the task on the condition that Heracles subdue the hound without weapons. Heracles did so with strength alone, and Hades allowed him to succeed, showing again his impartial nature. Even in confrontation, he was fair. The Greeks sometimes called Hades by other names, for they feared to speak his true one. They referred to him as Pluto, the wealth giver, for within the earth lay not only the dead but also riches, gold, silver, and fertile soil. To invoke him as Pluto was to remember that beneath the ground, life and treasure awaited. Thus Hades held not only the end of existence but also its hidden sustenance. In him dwelled both dread and necessity. Hades was not worshipped with temples in every city as Zeus or Apollo were. Instead, he was honored quietly, in caves, in funerary rites, and in solemn invocations. His name was whispered rather than shouted. Mortals did not pray for his favor in daily life, but they acknowledged his inevitability. To live was to know that Hades awaited, not as an enemy but as the custodian of all souls. His was the final gate, the last companion of every mortal journey. When you reflect on Hades, you find a god who is not monstrous, not cruel, but steady, patient, and unavoidable. He does not chase glory or thunder across the sky. He does not hurl storms or ignite wars. He simply is, eternal and immovable, like the stillness of the night or the heaviness of sleep. His myth reminds us that life has cycles, that joy and sorrow weave together, that even in endings there is a strange continuity. The fields go barren, then bloom again. The maiden descends, then returns. The soul leaves, but memory lingers. And so, the story of Hades is less a tale of excitement and more a rhythm, a soft and steady heartbeat beneath the surface of things. It is the slow turning of seasons, the silence that follows every noise, the rest that follows labor. When we drift into sleep, it is Hades who holds the keys to the dark world we enter, not with terror but with inevitability, a reminder that all journeys end in stillness. His story, like the underworld itself, is a quiet place, vast and shadowed, where time loosens its grip. It asks nothing of us but acceptance. In this way, Hades becomes less a figure of dread and more a companion of rest, a presence that teaches us to let go. As you listen to his story, unfolding like the flow of a river beneath the earth, you may find your own thoughts slowing, your own burdens softening, as though you, too, are crossing into the fields of Asphodel, where everything is calm, where everything waits in peace, and where sleep, gentle and complete, finally arrives.